I'm Katelyn Alsop.
And I'm Michael Alsop.
And we have an 18-month-old little girl named Evie, and we are going to share the story of our second child, a little boy whose name was James. So we had a 8.5, 9-month-old at home and suddenly realized that we were pregnant, and it was quite a surprise. And so we were shocked at first, but then really excited, and we couldn't wait for Evie to have a sibling close in age. They were gonna be 17 months apart, and so we just went through this pregnancy as a normal pregnancy progresses, and we got to our 20-week appointment, and we took Evie into the ultrasound room. We wanted her to see her baby brother or sister on the screen, and but it was not the appointment that you would hope to have at 20 weeks. It was pretty devastating. We found out that our baby boy had a lot of issues. We didn't just see one thing wrong, there were a lot of things that were wrong, and all of his symptoms, it all pointed to some underlying cause. So he had ascites, he had fluid in his abdomen, he had a hygroma on his back of his head, he had a heart defect. And so we had an amniocentesis, and that showed that our baby boy had Down syndrome. And the complications from Down syndrome were pretty severe, and the doctors were hopeful at first maybe some of the fluid would go back down, but it was pretty obvious a couple weeks after that appointment that he probably was not going to survive. And you know, from a perspective of a parent, we were at loss for what to do and what to say. You just don't even know what to think when you hear news like that. But there's one thing that we really felt confident about, and that was I knew that I was supposed to carry him as long as God allowed him to live. And that is the hardest decision that I have ever made, but it's the best decision that I ever made. And so we found out at 20 weeks, and they gave him about 4 to 5 weeks to live. And 11 weeks later, almost 3 months later, that is when we lost him. And so it was a long time. I went from 20 weeks to 31 weeks carrying this sweet little boy that we only saw alive on ultrasounds. So we knew that this was coming. I would say, and I think you would agree, that it was the day that we would deliver him, that I would deliver him. It seemed like this very scary day. And we hoped and prayed like that somehow, despite the pain of losing a child like this, that delivering him and getting to actually meet him, somehow it could be joyful still, that in the midst of the pain, that it could still be a positive experience. And it was.
We did a lot of research before we went in to deliver James, and a lot of the blogs and the doctors recommended that we would write a birth plan on how we wanted things to progress, and you know, if he was born with a heartbeat, what would we want to happen, and if he wasn't, what do we want to happen? And just tough things to think through, but in the moment, you know, you're not really going to be able to think through those things. And so we talked through and wrote all that out, and the nurses were so thankful for that, and said it was a beautiful way to honor him and to love him, and they followed it, you know, word by word, which was a huge gift to us. And we're just thankful that they were supportive in that process.
We showed up to labor and delivery, the same place where I showed up to deliver Evie. It seemed so surreal because we were walking into the same waiting room, going in, walking the same halls, going to the room. But like everything was slightly different because we knew the end result wasn't going to be the same. And I remember thinking to myself, like, gosh, I don't even know what to expect. You know, do they treat people differently in situations like ours? Like, what is it going to be like? And it was no different than Evie. The only thing that was different than Evie's experience is that there was not a cry when I pushed James out. I remember the doctor saying, "Hello, baby," like, "Welcome, baby," to fill the silence. And that's just one example of how the team of midwives and administration and nurses, they did everything they could to make our experience with a stillbirth seem as normal as possible, even though it was far from normal. We had a cuddle cot, which is basically a bassinet that keeps a baby's body really cool, and so that the deterioration of skin, and none of that happened. We got to hold our baby and let our family meet our baby. We had him with us for over 15 hours, and I remember nurses, I remember Amber coming in and checking on us. Rhonda came and was checking on us. Megan helped, the midwife Megan, she helped deliver James. All these people, it just felt like everyone was just there to try to make this as easy as possible, because it obviously was not easy at all. They allowed us to have this joyful experience of meeting our son, even though we knew that we were gonna have to say goodbye to him right after he was born, because I think I pushed like 10 times, 15 minutes. He was breech, which is crazy. But it went really smoothly. I remember Megan, she was holding my leg, and she said, when you come in here again with your third baby, it is going to be so easy. It's going to be so easy. It's going to be so wonderful. And I just cling to that, because I know that next time I go in to Henrico Doctors, I do want a different outcome. But for the story that God gave us, it was the best experience we possibly could have had, given our story and given our situation. The other thing that we really appreciated was that everyone knew for the past 11 weeks that our baby wasn't going to survive. And some people would consider it kind of strange that we just kept going, but that's what we felt like we were called to do. And everyone honored that decision. Everyone was so supportive of the fact that that we were in the situation that we were in, and they just honored his life. They called him by his name, and we just really appreciated that. So I think as a mom who has a little girl here on earth and a little baby boy in heaven, I have had two very different birth experiences and two very different stories. And I think looking back, what I have found is that where you choose to deliver a baby and the people that you surround yourself with really matter. And it can change everything about the memories that you have, those first memories that you have with your children. And so while Evie's story was just such a victorious, I advocated for myself, people believed in me, and I delivered a large baby when other people told me I couldn't. That was such a empowering experience. But experiencing a stillbirth and losing our son with the same team, same medical team, it allowed me to feel empowered in a different way. I lived through something that a lot of people thankfully will never have to live through, but I still felt like I just conquered something so great, something almost unimaginable. And I felt like I was able to do that and to do it well, because I had such a great support system. We loved our OB during James's whole process and that whole pregnancy. We loved the midwives. We loved the nurses. So it matters where you choose to deliver your children. It matters what people you invite into that part of your life, and we know that we made the right decision.
We had this little phrase that we were gonna love him while we had him, and that was our goal.
And that's what we did.